evening, everybody. Welcome to the planning board meeting for March of the town of Milton. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And Ms. Blanchard, would you start out by calling the attendance of the board?
Mr. Marsicano?
Here.
Ms. Padula?
Here.
Mr. Collins? Did he say?
Yes.
Sir, okay. Ms. Van Danza? Here. Ms. Stevens?
Here.
Mr. Whittle?
Here.
Chairman Bartow?
Here. Okay, I'd also like to note that we have in attendance our engineer Joel Bianchi and counsel William Kennery attending remotely. And with joining us this evening, our Director of Planning and Codes, Bill Lewis, Board Secretary Tina Blanchard, our Deputy Clerk Amanda Zawada. We'll start this evening with the pledge to the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't have to this evening, but I will note that since our last meeting on February 18th, Bill Lewis and myself did meet with Frank McLennigan to conceptually discuss the outdoor solar project on 781 I've had some exchanges with Meg Soden, Supervisor Blotnick, and one of the ZBA boards regarding our training requirements for 2021. I just got a call from, or an email from JD this evening, late this afternoon. He's asked us to identify a handful of possible courses that we look at. So I will be emailing around that to you. There's a link that you can check and see whatever else is there, but he's asked us to identify at least 3 to 4 hours. We have a 4-hour minimum training, we're going to do 1 2-hour training, and then we're going to identify a second one that we're planning to do them all remotely sometime between now and the end of June, so 4 hours. Then this evening we'll have a couple opportunities for the public to interface with us, and I'd ask that if you're Zooming with us and want to make a comment, please use the hand wave feature and alert us to your interest in commenting. You may also use the Q&A feature, or the chat, no, it's the Q&A feature on the webinar, and submit a question. However, we will not accept any anonymous questions. Please submit your name with your inquiry. If you have dialed in on the phone feature of Zoom and would like to make a comment, please call Bill Lewis at 518-884-2764 or 518-376-1831. His cell phone. Provide him your name and interest in making a comment. He'll alert me to a comment and you can unmute your phone. As with our usual comment protocol, we request that you announce yourself, state your address, and then present your comments within 3 minutes. Okay, our first order of business is the approval of the minutes from February 27th, 2021. You all should have them in your packets. I will entertain a motion to approve the February 27th, 2021 planning board meeting minutes.
Is it the 27th or the 17th?
I'm sorry to correct it, the 17th.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the planning board meeting minutes of Wednesday, February 17th, 2021.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion or changes to the minutes? There being none, could you pull the board?
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Ms. Van Danza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Chairman Bartow?
Yes. Unanimous. At this point, I'll open the meeting to comments from the public. Please note that we have we don't have any public hearings this evening. So this is a limited opportunity to speak. Again, I'd ask if you're Zooming, raise the hand chat feature, whatever, and then if you're calling, try Bill's cell phone, 518-376-1831. Any public comment at all? I don't even see any participants. There being nobody that wishes to comment at this time, we'll move to our next item of business. First project this evening is a site plan review and special use permit application for Active Solar, 781 Route 29. This evening, we start with a new application for a community solar project proposed by Active Solar at 781 New York State Route 29 on property owned by Michael Dahl. Everybody should have the following before them. Site plan review application dated 3/3/21, special use permit application dated 3/3/21, Active Solar 781 Route 29 project dated 3/3/21, a full environmental impact statement assessment, dated 3/3/21, the site lease agreement dated 8/18/20, a listing of adjoining properties within 300 feet, no date, National Grid preliminary screening analysis December 2019, Highline 144M6 bitractile panel design pamphlet, a single line diagram dated 11/12/20, a three line diagram dated 11/12/20, an aerial plan dated 3/2/21, New York Community Facility Decommissioning Plan dated 3/3/21, Active Solar 781 Route 29 Solar Farm Site Plans dated 3/3/21, Active Solar Storm Pollution Prevention Plan dated 3/3/21, and correspondence from Joel Bianchi, our engineer, on the first review of this project dated 3/15/31. Based on the review of the full environmental assessment form submitted by the applicant, it appears this project will be a type 1 action under secret. We're required to undertake a coordinated review and notify involved agencies of the planning board's desire to assume lead agency. I'll consider a motion to express the interest of the town of Milton to assume lead agency under secret and to instruct our engineer to reach out to the potential involved interested agencies to express their interest in assuming lead agency.
Chairman, I'll second that. Of course. Yeah.
You'll make the motion? I'll second it.
Okay, Bernadette, you made the motion.
Just catching up today.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? There being no discussion, before the board?
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Mr. Collins? Ms. Vandenza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Chairman Bartow?
Yes. Okay, once we've completed the coordinated review, we can undertake our determination of significance and complete the secret process. Hopefully, we get this done prior to our next meeting. Mr. McFarland, or I know he's on Zoom, and you are,
My name is Jason Dell. I'm an engineer with Lansing Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant.
can you speak up a little bit?
Sure. My name is
Jason?
Jason Dell, engineer with Lansing Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, and Frank is muted, so I assume he doesn't have anything to say, so. Jason, I'll-
Right.
How come you're here?
So I'd also say Joe Bianchi is waiting to get in.
Okay, how did you know that? He's on.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
So,
So go ahead, Jason, we'll start.
Okay. Again, Jason Dell, engineer with Lansing Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant for the 781 Route 29 solar farm. The project site is located on a parcel of about 65.9 acres at 781 Route 29. It's about 1,500 feet west of the intersection of Route 29 and Rock City Road. The parcel itself extends across both the R2 zoning district as well as the H1 zoning district. This project is proposed only on the portion of the land that is within the R2 district where solar farm is in allowed use. The majority of the property is currently vacant wooded land, and the project generally slopes from the south toward the north. So for the project, Active Solar is looking to construct an approximate 4.35 megawatt solar array facility. That will include about 9,663 solar panels, which will add up to the 4.3 megawatt facility. All of the solar panels, as you can see from the layout, are situated at least 100 feet back from all property lines in accordance with the town code. Access into the solar facility will be from a 20-foot wide access drive that will extend from 29 to the array, will branch towards the east as well as continue on towards the north, where each terminus of the access road will have a hammerhead turnaround to accommodate emergency vehicles should the need arise. The entire facility will have a 7-foot high fence around the perimeter of it. In the area of the branch off, there will be a slide gate, and there will have a Knox box on it. That will allow for any kind of emergency vehicles to also enter into the facility. Visibility of the array we don't feel is going to be an issue on this project due to the fact that it's set so far back from the road and the existing houses, kind of in the central portion of the site. The closest house to the south of the array is about 400 feet away from the beginning of the array. It's a wooded area between the array and the property to the south. As far as seeker, the coordinated review, or the review with SHPO has been completed. We do have a SHPO sign-off for the project at this point in time, and we have begun coordination with U.S. Fish and Wildlife for threatened and endangered species. Detailed plans you have in front of you, as well as the project SWIP, have been reviewed by MJ Engineering. We have received comments from them, technical comments. We take no exception to those comments at this time. And we're here this evening to introduce the project to the board. Request, as the board just did, to begin the seeker review process, and if possible, schedule a public hearing for the special use permit.
Okay.
Mr. Rocco?
Sure, go ahead.
My understanding is Mr. Bianchi is trying to get in under his cell phone number, and he's muted. If you could help him.
Okay, I gotta find him. I don't see any cell phone.
9635 is the last number if you help him.
That is not on my Zoom screen.
Okay.
9635.
Yep.
Yeah, he's under an attendee, so want me to
Oh,
allow him
let
to
me, I'll
talk?
get it, I'll get it.
Got it?
Joel, you there? No, you got on mute, Joel.
We're gonna put the mic closer to your.
Joel? He's muted. He's not responding.
But that, I think he's looking to be unmuted.
It just says ask to unmute.
He was asking about it. He's muted himself. I don't have the ability to remove it. It's his number.
I have to call my cell phone. I can put that on speaker.
Sure. Joe, if you can hear me, can you call Bill Lewis's cell phone? You need that number?
376-1831.
376-1831. Disconnected? know what's going on with this, Joel, but it wasn't.
You may be on my end, I speak perfectly, and I'm waving frantically, but it doesn't matter, so you can hear me now.
Yes. All right, so the question was, do you have any comments at this point?
No, Jay Dell from Lansing covered it. The only thing I stole my thunder, the only thing I was going to say, like he said, is he provided the SHPO letter, so that secret item is done. He provided our comments, doesn't seem like he has any issue with those, so assuming the board, did their appropriate procedural aspects tonight, this evening we will initiate and distribute documents to involved agencies tomorrow.
Okay. So that 30 days we have to wait for them to respond, right?
Yeah, but what we'll do is what we can always do, because there's not that many involved in interested agencies. SHPO already replied, they're usually the last one. If we get all the agencies back and consent to being the agency, theoretically you could take action before that 30-day period. Because it's the town board for pilot, DEC for stormwater, county planning, and SHPO. SHPO's already responded. DEC's usually pretty quick.
Can we go ahead and schedule a public hearing?
Yeah, I think it would be safe to do that, and what we do is, when the public notice has to go out for some reason, we don't have all the responses, then we would have to possibly reschedule the public hearing. But I think from past practices on solar farms, the agencies involved will be responsive for all the things.
So we can do the notices and then, if anything, just keep the hearing open as well.
You couldn't even open the public hearing.
No.
Because it's.
That's right.
So,
All right. Well, we'll try that. So,
yeah, I think it's a calculated risk, but I think it's one worth taking.
okay. Bill, do you have any problems with this?
No, this
All
time, no.
right. Does the board have any questions on the project? Got a quick one. Go ahead.
Is this all the same hardware as the prior two projects? Panels and the transformers and all that?
In all honesty, we try to keep in the same idea of the previous projects you've done in the town, pardon me if you can. We're way back, we're buried, nobody should see us. Same exact racking system, similar panels, meaning the wattage has gotten a little bigger now. We're doing it, it's actually smaller than the past two that you guys have done for us. So, we're trying to be quiet and, just come in and, as we've done in the past. So I hope you guys, have been happy with what we've done in the past and we're continuing on. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
I have a little tiny thing that drives me crazy because I'm a little particular on detail. On your two things here, the wiring things, Saratoga's misspelled.
I'll leave that
Huh?
to you.
It's misspelled.
That's my fault.
Okay.
Take care of it.
But yeah, that's one of those little things, that
Yep.
little details.
Sorry.
Anybody else?
I just said, when you're doing it, this is just a lease, right? You're not buying it, there's no
It is a lease.
subdivision at all or anything?
Just a lease on the exact same property, we're within the ground coverage ratio that the town dictates, so no variance as we had on the last one, so I'm hoping it's straightforward.
And the reason I'm asking is because there's a few encroachments, but that's up to the landowner to allow.
That is correct.
Those are not involved in the solar.
No,
No.
no,
it's-
they're staying away from the encroachments.
Yeah.
So,
What? Well noticed, Mr. Little.
thank you.
Anybody else at this time have any questions? Okay, there being no questions further, could I go ahead and schedule a public hearing for our meeting date next week?
I have my list with me.
It's going to be
The 21st.
April 21st.
Wow.
Yeah.
speaker before we get into it. And hopefully everything will be done, we'll notify you if for some reason we may be late, because at that point it may not be able to call the house to present it, so we're just going to change it or something. But what Joel said, generally right now, ship over to the other one, you got that? That he seems pretty quick, and we'll just ship everything else through. Sorry about that. So what we'll do is tentatively schedule a public hearing for 7:05 p.m. on April 21st. I'll need a motion from the board.
I'll make that motion.
Stevens. And a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? If not, full board for public hearing on active solar, 7/31/29, 4/21/23, 7:05 p.m.
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Van Denza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. You need anything from us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next project is an amended site plan review application for Cato House Village Winter Circle. Everyone should have before them the following items: the site plan review application dated 3/3/21, the site plan amendment dated 3/3/21. Did we receive a environmental assessment form? Peter?
I did not get that back by 5 p.m. So, Joe, did you send it to me?
I emailed it directly back and
I'll go there and go check again, but I just checked and didn't have it, but let me just double check.
I'd like to deal with that, but in the meantime, Joe, why don't you go ahead and
copy of
give
it.
it that sheet and make a copy. If you don't need it,
Okay.
And then he's got a copy of it.
Take it. Got a copy.
All right, Joe, why don't you give an overview of what you're doing?
Oh, yeah,
And could you on this go into some background on the historic nature of this? Very few, if any of us went on the board when this project came in. We don't know, the record isn't very deep on it, so I'm trying to figure out how many units were originally approved, where are we now, where are we going with these changes?
Okay,
And you know,
certainly.
you had questions, I think, about this even if you was needed, and I was going to change that. Keep that.
Partial. I've been involved in this project since its inception, probably 20 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
So I got a pretty good history. I know pretty well. Some spots are spotty for me as well, but
Okay.
there's been a lot of planning board meetings and a lot of review on this project. So, good evening. I'm Joe Danable with the Environmental Design Partnership. Here on behalf of Cato House Village LLC and our application for a site plan modification. Before I get into the modification, I guess I'll go back through a little bit of history of the project. The overall property itself is 3 different zoning districts. We have the mixed-use zone, which has an allowable density of 16 units per acre. We have a slight portion of the property that is within the runway overlay district. And at the project's inception, we actually had 2 zoning districts down here. This was an R1 zoning district and a stream corridor overlay district. The original applications comprised of essentially, I guess we'll call it phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe not necessarily in the order that I just pointed them out, but there was an approval for 586 apartment units. Those approvals, traffic was looked at very significantly. There were traffic improvements on Geyser Road that have since been installed. They were triggered at certain thresholds within the development. All of those road improvements have been installed. Seeker documents looked at traffic, they looked at sewer, they looked at water, they looked at environmental, they looked at endangered species, wetlands, 2000, I can't remember the date of the original approval, but I think it was somewhere in the 2006 era, where a negative declaration was issued for the project and final site plan was approved for the 586 units.
That was my,
I believe in 2006, but I just don't want to be quoted on that one. It's been a while. I do know in 2010 and approved in 2011, we came in for phase 5 or phase 6, the 600 series of buildings, at which time we applied for a PDD with the town. We were approved to construct another 120 units in this section, bringing up the total units to 706 units for the overall project. Just to put that into perspective, the project itself is about 122 acres. Based upon the mixed-use zoning, which the majority of the site is in, we have an allowable density of close to 1,400 units. So at the 706, we're about 50% of the allowable density for this property, so well below. Time frame for the construction. Okay, phase 1 was 2009, which was this area up here, the ponds, and units associated with that, clubhouse, pool. Phase 2, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you started from the back and worked towards Greenfield Avenue. Phase 2 was another 120 units constructed in 2012. Phase 3, which was phase 3A, 3B, and 3C, was completed in 2015, bringing the total number of units up to 409. Phase 4, the land down here, was completed in 2019 and bringing us to where we are today with a total of 586 units constructed on the property.
there's 586 existing.
Correct. We have just recently started some of the construction associated with phase 6, which was approved. I don't remember exactly when that was approved. That was the PDD that was approved in 2011. The site plan was approved 13, 14.
I can't remember.
It's in that range.
It's been a long time.
But we have been doing earthwork and site work within that area, so there is a vested interest in the property, and therefore the site plan approval carries. So that brings us to today and probably the last year or so. For whatever reason, I'm not the marketing person, that's Malta Development, Cater Ross Village, the 3-bedroom units that were within every one of these buildings, which are all 10-unit buildings. 3-unit buildings, units, we're not renting. Tom, working with the town, applied to the town and got a permit to modify the 3-unit building, or 3-bedroom units into 2 1-bedroom units, which there's 52 buildings constructed. He hasn't converted all of them yet. I think he's done maybe about 40 of them in that range, and renting them out at 2-bedroom units. I think currently, sorry, units and phases, I'm getting confused here. I think currently we're around 615 total units within the project constructed at this time. We're looking at the phase 6 buildings. We completely did a reconfiguration of the internal workings of those buildings. Got rid of both 3-bedroom units, and we end up with 12 units within the phase 6 buildings. So we're going to have a total of 144 units. So give you all the numbers. I know I just threw a lot of 3s and 2s and 1s and 500s at you. Essentially what we're looking at, the project itself is approved at 706 units. As we complete the modifications to the internal 3 units, 3-bedroom units being converted to 2 1-bedroom units.
It's a 52.
52, and the conversion of these 12 buildings here at 10 units to 12-unit buildings. We're going to go from 706 units to 782 units. That's an increase of a total of 76 units within the project. 706 approved to 782, an increase of 76 units. Let's put this in perspective. When we look at the site plan, I bolded on the site plan, the only stat on this plan that changes is the number of units.
Yeah.
There is no change, actually there was potentially a slight decrease in the overall impervious area on the site. The site work itself, the roads, the stormwater, the sewer network, the water system, no changes proposed, no new impacts to what's already been approved by this board are proposed. So we look at some of the other potential impacts of the project. We look at sewer usage and water usage. Sewer usage and water usage are calculated on the total number of bedrooms within the community. To the right page here. When we look at the number of bedrooms within this community, we are increasing by 76 units. The bedroom count, however, is going from 1,498 bedrooms to 1,422 bedrooms. We're decreasing by about 76 bedroom units within the whole development. So actually, our demand on sewer and water will go down based upon strictly the number of bedrooms within the community. And again, that's how sewer and water usage is calculated for for a residential apartment community. The other element we looked at is traffic. This is again something else I thought went to the town today with the EAF. I have a copy, I can give it to the board tonight, we can get some more copies of it made. We had an updated trip generation summary completed by the traffic engineers for the project. Traffic engineers went out and calculated the actual trips coming in and out of this project during the AM and PM peak hours. They not only did this in 2021, but they also did it in 2012 when we were here getting the PDD for the 120 units in phase 5. And what they found is that the actual trips coming out of this site are significantly lower than what was projected in the original traffic computations for the 706 apartment units. Based upon the ITE manual in 2011 that was used for the overall 720 units, they calculated a total AM peak trip hour of 350, AM hour peak trip generation of 350 trips, and the PM peak hour of 406 trips. So putting that into perspective, currently, there's 615 units on the property. That's the 586 plus 30 or so units that have been converted. That's generating, the actual number of trips is 154, or 200 less than what was projected for the 706 total. We worked those statistics back and forth with the numbers, and we actually find that based upon a rate we recorded in 2012, we have 53 less trips coming out of this project at full build-out at the 786 units, based upon what they actually calculated as the actual trips in 2012. And then when they did actual trips in 2021, we're actually 154 trips less than what was anticipated by the traffic, and this is the AM hours, in 2011. We look at the PM peak hours, and we're a little closer. Based upon the 2012 actual recorded trip generation, we had 15 less trips at peak build out at 786. And based upon the rates they just recorded in 2021, we're 109 trips less, even though we have the additional units. Now, I'm sure everyone on the board is kind of shaking their head. We're increasing the project by 76 units. How does the trips generation actually go down? Had a long talk with the traffic engineer this morning. In 2011, the ITE, the Institute for Traffic Engineers Manual, had apartments lumped into one number. That rate was 0.58 trips per unit. That number was conservatively high. The current manual now breaks down trips for apartments into 3 categories. Low rise, which are less than 3 stories, mid-rise, which are 3 to somewhere around 7 or 8, and then above that is considered a high-rise apartment unit. Those numbers have gone significantly down for the low-rise community by the number of trips generated. And the numbers that we are now seeing within the apartment community are much more consistent with that percentage of trips per unit. So again, the conclusion of our study is that we're producing less trips, actual trips now, based upon actually going out there, putting the ATRs on the ground, recording every trip going in and out of the community, than what was projected in the original traffic studies for 2011 for the 706 apartment units. Ultimately, the conclusion of the traffic study is that this project is going to have no impact on the traffic within the community, and that no further mitigation is going to be necessary for the increase in the number of units on the property. So with that, those are really the 3 main seeker elements that may be subject to change by increasing the number of units. All of the other seeker elements really have no impact associated with this project. We're not increasing disturbance, we're not changing green space, we're not increasing stormwater runoff, we're not even proposing any physical change to the project. The layout you see here today, the road network, the units, the garages, the parking spaces, nothing changes on the site. We provide at least 2 spaces per apartment unit. Every unit has a garage space. So we're here tonight. We want to go through the process to get a modification of the site plan to allow 786 units on the property. There's been an initial seeker determination with this project. It'd be our belief that the board should be able to find that this project is consistent with the original seeker finding and that no further seeker action would be required. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody from the board, Bill, you got any comments?
No, other than, as the applicant said, the applicant came before the building department to convert the 10-unit apartments with a 3-bedroom unit into 11-unit apartments. They have the additional parking outside. On those units, if I'm correct, they do not have a garage in the building. Are you getting
One of
that?
them does not have the garage, the 11th.
The 11th unit does not have a garage. On the new proposal, are you proposing still to have two units without a garage?
That is correct.
Okay, so the new proposed section in the back will still be the same footprint with 12 apartments instead of 11 like we're doing right now with the additional approval. And you'll have 2 apartments in those that will not have an internal garage. But they do have access to purchase garage space from you from the other garages, correct?
And they have if you've ever been through it, we've got a sign dedicating a spot to each of the ones that don't have a garage.
Right.
So other people don't take their.
Right, they made accommodations in the 11 upfit for garbage, for access to off-street parking. Pretty much, it's converting that 3-bedroom into a 1, as Joe said, alleviating the sewer and water issues and minimizing that due to the bedroom count. and really no impact to the existing project other than the one car which is parked outside, and that's between the applicant and the people that rent from them. And they can have the option to have a remote parking spot. So basically, we've been doing the retrofits for almost 2 years now. It was approved under Wayne, and Wayne, through the building department, we had told the applicant that when they were coming close to reaching their allotted 706 units, that they'd have to come before the board to increase any units if they were to move to the back. So that's why the applicant is now before the board.
One thing I'd like to say, traffic engineers don't really get into it, but anyone from Milton knows, we've always had a heavy Navy presence. Those 3-bedroom units had 3 Navy personnel in them whenever they were rented. We had 3 cars, and then, of course, they ended up with significant others in there. Sometimes we had 6 cars per apartment. A 1-bedroom apartment is never more than 2 cars.
Yeah.
In many cases, only 1. So creating these 2, we've reduced the number of cars and reduced the parking that we need. We actually have a little more room. It's kind of a unique thing to our area.
Yeah. Anybody else? Bernadette?
I just, sorry. So, a few questions actually. When was the study most recently done? When in 2021?
It's been done within the last one.
Within the last month, okay. For a freshman, what kind of age range was in those apartments? You said maybe, so working ages?
Yeah, and all the way, we have actually a lot of retired people too. We just run, we don't have any restrictions.
Sure.
We just hold, market rent.
Did the traffic engineers indicate how some people are still working from home? Did they indicate if they have any idea if people, a certain percentage of your working residents are, I mean, they wouldn't necessarily know if they are working from home, but I mean, overall in the nation, you would have seen it. In New York State, it is picking up again, but traffic has been down. I mean, there's a lot of reports on that. Is that figured into your numbers? Did they discuss that with you at all?
Yes, they did. So the numbers that we got from the actual observed rate in 2021 are showing a multiplier AM peak hour 0.25 trips per unit in the AM hour and 0.38 trips per unit in the peak hour, or the PM peak hour. Traffic engineers represented to me that is somewhat of an anomaly, and it sure has to do, that low of a rate does have to do with the fact that they believe people are staying home and not going to work at normal hours due to COVID restrictions. So what we are actually, and that's the numbers when I said we're minus 154 trips and minus 109 trips. That is the anomaly and that outlier because of the COVID numbers. When we look at what I said, there was an actual trips observed in 2012. Those numbers from 2012 are much more consistent with what the current ITE manual would have for low-rise apartment units. Those multipliers were 0.38 for the AM peak hour and 0.50 for the PM peak hour. Those multipliers are much more consistent with the actual rates in the current ITE manual. And when we look at the difference in those trips, AM peak hour is minus 53 trips from the original study, and the PM peak hour is only minus 53 trips for the AM peak hour, minus 15 trips for the PM peak hour. So again, much more consistent with what we would expect to find in the current trip generation rates in the ITE manual.
I guess I'll flip it over when I get a copy
Yep.
of it. Thank you.
It's a 20-page report with a lot of information in it. Just got it today, thought I got it to the town.
Jim, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, just to clarify the number of units, you've got approval to change the floor plan in phases 1 through 5.
All the existing buildings, yes.
So you're changing those until you hit your limit of 706 units.
We will never hit 706 within the conversion of all these units,
Okay?
but we can't start this phase until we get the site plan approval, because maybe we would get 2 or 3 buildings put up. So we're looking for an overall site plan approval that would allow for the change covering the entire property.
But there are 52 units in phases 1 through 5 that are going to put you over 706, right?
So we're currently at 586 constructed, and we would have 52 additional units if we converted everything in phase 1 through 4. That would put us at 642? 638?
Around 640.
Well, right here it says increase from 706 to 782, so what's 706?
706 is what's currently approved on the
For
site,
all 6
including,
phases.
including this. So from an overall perspective, we're looking to increase from what you see here is approved at 706 to what you see here approved as 782.
Okay. But the approval is for 80-something units, or 76 units across all the phases?
Right, additional
That
76
includes those
units.
3-bedroom change
That's what I
outs
was
that are
looking
going
for,
on,
yeah.
52 units there, plus the 3 bedrooms that he's already got in phase 6.
Okay.
52 in what's already built and adding 24 to what is not built yet. So 76 is the additional throughout the whole site.
So in the existing
It's just
units,
confusing, these darn numbers.
yeah, that's why I wanted to clarify.
Then we'll throw
things.
bedrooms in there and really start confusing everyone.
I'm just out of curiosity, in the existing units, you're actually building walls and putting more doors in or something?
Yeah, we have to create the firewall separation and the sprinkler systems for each and the sound separation. So it is a totally new unit. You know, all the prints were designed and
And you're
made
splitting
to meet code.
garages and, or you're splitting garages?
No, we're
Some
not
on
splitting
eight.
garage. One gets one doesn't on that conversion.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to reflect, I did say every unit gets a garage, I misspoke on that during the presentation.
You
Every
did.
unit gets a designated parking space, so that was confusion on my fault. I just want to make sure that's clear for the record.
Yeah, that's actually where my question was going. Thank you for clarifying that. When you say they got a designated parking space, when I looked around some of the buildings, because we made some concessions, right? We worked with you for several decades now on this particular project, right? So we started with the mixed units, with the duplexes in the back. We started, it was all one property. Then remember we came in and we subdivided it, right? So we've been working with you for a while on this particular property, right?
You might be the only one that's been through the entire thing.
But the question I have for you is, can you help us understand the, maybe for next time or whatever, help us understand, is the parking space for the building near where the building is?
Near where the unit is.
Yeah, near where the unit
If
is.
you drive through, you'll see the little signs that say reserved parking, you know.
Oh, I didn't see that, so I couldn't take a.
It's not even cars parked in front of them. And then, because they don't have a garage, I don't know if you noticed the cedar enclosures where their trash cans go, so nobody can see them. Everyone else is required to keep them in the garage. We don't let them leave them outside except pick up bag. So we built little enclosures for each of these new units.
Okay. And so the actual parking spot is near the,
Yes.
near their particular unit?
Yeah, if you drive around, every building's got like 2, 3, 4, 2 parking spaces scattered all the way around all the driveways on each building.
Okay, because I know we made some concessions, like we moved some of the garages around when we did the original one, and so that like some of them were across the street and stuff like that, so I just, but they all have one.
Well,
They
we
all
have
a spot.
overflow garages.
Yeah, you have the
They're not
overflow.
dedicated to any unit, they're just,
Right.
if people want a second garage.
They're for rent, right?
Yeah.
Right, storage.
And we have overflow parking, that's, you know, whoever needs a spot, company, not the city.
Right. Okay. All right, thanks.
Anybody else? Somebody got a question? Okay, so this is Christy B, and she indicates that as a community member who was at the initial meeting of this project, my question is, what happened to the residential housing that was to be built on the back side of this property to minimize apartments and make long-term housing?
That would be the approval of the PDD in 2011, which permitted us to put the 10-unit buildings.
I don't even remember ever having houses out there, but, you know, as it progressed through the
So we-
original.
I don't recall us ever having single-family homes. His original plan from way back when had the potential for duplexes or triplexes as it, because the way the property was developed, or, excuse me, not developed, the way it was zoned before, it had the mixed-use portion, and then it had the other portion, and we couldn't just put them together. So they had, with the other portion, they were limited. They couldn't do the units, like, if you look at the mixed unit, he can go up to 6 units per, 6 units per acre, so 16 units per acre, which if you see he has 114 acres, he could go up to somewhere around 1,800 units or something like that, if he could get the buildings in there correctly and stuff. But I think the limit when that was about 1,600 apartments, I think, was the limit back then. And then with the duplexes and triplexes in the other spot. So,
I don't remember that one. You got a better memory than me.
so,
I mean,
Yeah,
maybe
so-
we kicked around a few ideas back in 2005, and, you know, I don't know.
yeah.
So that, in responding to her, I could just say, as originally proposed, they couldn't do the individual duplex units, so the PDD was agreed with all that.
Yeah,
I just want to.
Yeah, I would essentially say in 2011, the town board approved a PDD that permitted us to develop this consistent with the rest of the property. That's really.
And the PDD is all ready. The PDD is all ready.
Yes.
And again, Mr. Chair, the actual footprint of the project is staying the same. It's kind of deceiving when you're saying put 12 cars. The actual footprint that you see, site plan, is not changing. It's the actual apartment count number.
The actual building is slightly smaller also, it's over the 12 unit, because they're ones and twos. Put in the same spot, but a little less, a little more green space.
Christie, I allowed you to talk. Did your question get answered? I wrote her back that response, and I hope that it was answered. Christie, you can speak if you wanted to. Right. Oops, here's another question. Spoke. The other. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, so I think we answered the question. Thank you, Christie. Sorry, something's happening with our remote audio. Bill had the same problem. Another question. That's it. Okay. So, Mr. Kennery, do you have anything you want to mention to us? Yes, he did hand it out. We got it.
Okay, good. So I think the board members may be in a position to evaluate the request with respect to seekers. On the one hand, they can certainly, under the board process, make a determination, classify it as unlisted action as issue. But I would point out that we did provide some guidance in anticipation of this issue, and the board should be aware that there's a subsection within type 2 classification, which indicates that this could potentially be classified as exempt from further future review, based on prior decisions, but also because of this inconsistency. I do believe that the board could potentially find that the proposed action fits under the applicable zoning law or ordinance, it is permitted by special use permit, and the action does not meet or exceed any of the thresholds in section 6.7.4 of this part. And I've also provided the chairman of guidance on that does intend to indicate that this project could fit within the site classification. The last point, it says, I feel that it could be unheard in that assessment. And I don't know if he can speak, but I can speak for him on that.
I missed that last part.
Joel, you have anything to add?
I couldn't really hear what he was saying.
You basically read what he had emailed to you and I regarding how this could fall into a type 2 classification. And he was indicating that you had concurred, but might have something to add.
Yeah, at face value, you know, I think that this could be a type 2 action. Joe has put together a pretty compelling argument about the impacts that you would normally evaluate are basically unchanged, and it's effectively a change that occurs inside the four walls in a roof. And as long as that change, I think the threshold on type 2 actions is 4,000 square feet. If Bill Kinnery can hear that, he can confirm that. But it still may be a type 2 action regardless of that square footage threshold.
We're not increasing, we're actually decreasing the square footage on the overall property.
Yeah, I don't know if the type 2 language, when it talks about that threshold, differentiates between renovation, increasing. I think it just earmarks a number and doesn't differentiate between what that 4,000 square foot represents.
But I think what Joe's saying is the net change is actually a decrease of square footage, probably just because of wall space.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I would be comfortable if the board was also comfortable that you know, consider this a type 2 action, and if that's the board is in agreement with that, then there would be no further action, no further activity related to secret.
Well, based on the dialogue that we had had over the weekend and the last few days with council and the engineer, I was going to propose just that we classify this as a type 2 project and not require any additional secret review.
Yeah, I would agree with that, John.
But I would entertain that as a motion. Let's put on the record where it's just comfortable, and then we can discuss it further. Any other motion?
What's the overall delta to the applicant or the project?
So there's no change in building coverage, impervious surfaces, or anything like that. It's highlighted.
No, I meant between having to do the full type 1 or like it just would be the, you read through the form.
No, it would be an unlisted action when we go through.
It'd be the unlisted action and we go through the form, right?
Yeah.
Correct. To be an unlisted, then coordinated review is optional by us for public hearings. It is a type 2 action, and it's determined that we don't need any further secret review. I believe the board might be able to take action on this project tonight.
And John, as a practical matter too, if the board was for some reason uncomfortable with the type 2 action, and said it was an unlisted action, yes, coordinated review is optional. But in this case, I don't know of any other engineer or involved agency that would be have any jurisdiction over this action. Anybody?
No, there's no increase in traffic, there's no increase in footprint.
Yeah, so
there's
you're
no
not pulling
increase
in any local agencies, no other town land use boards or anything like that.
So it ends up in the same spot.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to determine. Is it more beneficial or, you know, what is, so it ends up in the same spot?
I think that the difference is if it's in type 2 action, the board can make a determination for type 2, no further seeker is needed, and ultimately take action on the project tonight
Yes.
to move it forward. If it's deemed an unlisted action, I think we have to come back 30 days from now for an additional meeting. That's the I'm understanding from this conversation.
Okay.
But I also want to treat it the way it should be treated. It's a type 2 action, type 2 action.
Well, I would too, yeah.
So,
But I'd just like to understand all the different sides,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
So do I have a motion to classify this as a type 2 action?
I'll make that
Miss-
motion.
You want me to
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Anybody have any questions about that or where we're at? There being no further discussion, poll the board.
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Van Denza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. Also, given the de minimis nature of this amendment, I entertain a motion that the requirement for a public hearing pursuant to section 18053E of the zoning code be waived. It is optional, it is a may, but it is not required. I just want to be clear that we're waiving.
Mr. Chairman, I move we waive the public hearing on this project, this amendment to the site plan.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Being no discussion, poll the board.
Mr. Marsicano?
Yes.
Ms. Padula?
Yes.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Van Denza?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Whittle?
Yes.
Chairman Barto?
Yes. Are there any other questions from the board? Anyone? Being no more discussion, I'd entertain a motion to approve the site plan amendment converting approved 10-unit apartment buildings to a combination of 11 and 12-unit apartment buildings and the site plan as presented to us today. Just get up.
One quick question. One of the items that we had pointed out,
The county planning board, what is that?
Do we have to do a referral? Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, Bill. He's saying that this is within 500 feet of a county road. So we have to do a referral on this. Okay. Then I withdraw that request for a motion.
Is he saying that it is required because it's a type 2 action that doesn't get?
The type 2 action doesn't,
Yeah, I don't know that that resolves of our obligation under the general municipal law.
Yeah, John, just because I think just because it's a type 2 action does not disregard the need to still undergo due diligence and referrals.
okay.
I wish I could give them that interpretation, but I don't believe that I don't think that provides a basis to waive that under section of state law.
Okay. All right. That's the first that came up. So good catch. So we won't be able to approve it this evening.
Has the application been sent to the county, or is that something that will come back, or will be sent, and is the county planning board meeting going to occur prior to the March?
I
Sorry.
think so. How does that work for us?
So, county planning has their meeting tomorrow, and I believe a referral was sent on this, so we should be able to hear something very shortly.
You did send a referral for this?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I suppose we'll know tomorrow. Can you check on that and let Joe know tomorrow?
Their meeting is tomorrow, so I probably won't hear anything until Friday at the
Can you
earliest.
confirm
But
that it's on the agenda?
I will let you, yes, their meeting's tomorrow. I haven't confirmed it, this particular one was on the agenda, but I'll follow up with Jeff tomorrow.
Okay.
Guess I'll just ask you
Yes.
I'm just, I'm not sure if there's anything we need to submit to be put on the agenda for the next meeting, anything, a letter?
No, it'll just come to us and
Yeah,
we'll
I'll
make a
second.
decision. You don't necessarily even have to be here. It's not.
Probably will.
No,
Just in case.
You kind of know where we're going. So unless there's something compelling to come with, which I think is,
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
Sorry.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to be brought before the planning board this evening? If not, I'll accept the motion to adjourn at 8:07 PM.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Will, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Hey,
You are adjourned, thank you.